Welcome to the South, the dirty South, the bottom of the map, the cradle of arts and entertainment in these continental United States, the home of candy paint, swingers and syrup, peanut butter interior, and parking lot pimping. Welcome to the Genius Generation Podcast. This is your host, the Professor Nathan Rito, aka your curator of dope shit. And today I got a true treat, a friend of mine, a titan in hip hop history, a titan of the culture, a true innovator. And I just want to introduce everybody to my friend Daddy-O. What up, Daddy-O?
You sure you talking about me, man? That's a heavy intro, bro.
Yeah, that's you, bro. That's you. I had to always say, man, when Stetsasonic doing their thing in the 80s, man, and I was just that little 15, 16-year-old kid.
Right.
At that time, especially in the South, the only thing we were able to see is what we saw on UMTV Raps, on the national shows.
Right.
And Stetsasonic was one of those groups right up there with the PEs, the EPMDs, and
I appreciate
LLs and everybody. So that's how I feel about you, man. And I was nervous when I first met you. When I first interviewed you a couple years ago, and I said I got to make up for that. So, man,
Right.
It's a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Oh yeah, man. Always a pleasure to talk to you, man. We have a lot of great conversations off camera too. So always a pleasure to talk.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, that we worked on a book together.
Oh yeah.
And it is Made in Brooklyn, a memoir of beat streets and life, the memoir of Daddy-O.
Yes. So we should be moving pretty good on that. I mean, we got a little. I don't think it's a bad thing, but a little snafu, little hiccup with COVID-19.
Yeah.
But I don't really believe in luck or anything. Like I read this long time ago. Chance is but a law unrecognized.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like most things really, I'm saying most, but I really feel like all things are happening the way they're meant to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. I could sit here and get mad over some things that's happening slow down and everything, but you can't change it, so you could just roll with the punches.
Oh yeah, and take advantage of it. I mean, I think that is the key to most of this stuff. I could probably say all of this stuff. Even a person that's a sanitation worker is to make the most out of what was thrown at you. You know, actually, the next book that you and I work on, I got an idea called The Best Robot Wins. And it's a spiritual book, I guess. But this is what it's about. We don't have proof that we not just pieces on a chessboard and God is just up there just moving them around. We don't have proof that that's not happening, right? And I've always said my idea, this is what the premise of the book is based on. My idea of free will is not what most people think is free will. My idea of free will is what you do with what's thrown at you. Because I don't think the way things look to me, especially at my age, I don't think we have a choice over what's thrown at us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I always look at free will. I think of a New York City street, which I guess now I gotta say an old New York City street, because the new New York City streets was first plagued by 700 deaths a day, and now they all boarded up because of the looting. But an old New York City street, there's a painter, and he's doing this thing and he's painting. It's with this blue paint, but he's doing it in an artistic kind of way, and you got on all white, and some of that paint ends up on your thing. How you deal with it is what I think free will is. You had no idea that paint was gonna hit you, but now you could fight old boy, you could curse him out.
Yeah.
You could say now, hey, I got a new look. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever, or go to him and say, okay, put a little bit. Now you gotta put my name on the shirt or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Right. But that's what I believe free will is, how we deal with what's thrown at us. So the book I want to work on with you is called The Best Robot Wins, because I feel like there is a small, and people could disagree with me. I don't really care about that. There's a small chance that we're robots, but the best robot will win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if it's true that God is sovereign, and I don't want to get into a whole sermon, but if it's true that God is sovereign, my bishop used to tell me that God sees the future like we see history.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's true that God is sovereign, that means that it's all written anyway. So the idea is that you just in the plan. So the best robot wins, meaning how do you handle what's thrown at you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Who programmed the best? It's pretty much is what you're saying. Whoever's programmed the best to make it through the situation. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so me and you'll talk about that.
Oh yeah. This is the Genius Generation podcast. I'm your host, the Professor Nathan Rito, and right now I'm gonna do what I do every show: is give my little ode to history, and my information I get comes from the Chuck D. The Chuck D presents This Day in Rap and Hip Hop History. For anybody who's likes to study the hip hop history or whatever, I suggest you go get this book. I'm gonna throw out a couple of dates around this date in history, starting out with June 4th. 1984. The movie Breakin' is released by MGM. Go up to June 8th, 1984. Only 4 days apart. Beat Street is released by Orion Pictures. June 5th, 1989. King Son releases his debut album Exhale on Profile Records. Now he's one of the first MCs to incorporate the beliefs of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths in his music. And we spoke about that in the book. You have a whole chapter devoted to that. June 6th, the day later, 1989, Gang Starr releases their debut album, No More Mr. Nice Guy, on Wild Pitch, and as Guru and Premier. And June 2nd, 1991, Ghetto Boys released We Can't Be Stopped on Rap-A-Lot Records with the groundbreaking single, My Mind Playing Tricks on Me, which became a classic and propelled the Ghetto Boys into another stratosphere. So that's hip hop history from this book right here. All right. Daddy-O, I like to start off with my interviews, man, just to let people know. I'm just gonna ask you the basic, simple question. It could be simple how you answer it, or you could make it as complex as you want. Who is Daddy-O?
I think Daddy-O. So Daddy-O is a persona, right? Because I said this before, and actually we got this in the book. I was given the name Daddy-O. It wasn't the name I chose for myself. I was given it by some guys that taught me my rap style and all of those particular things. Yeah. And it's weird about the Daddy-O name because I grew into Daddy-O. I don't think when they gave me the name Daddy-O, I was Daddy-O.
Yeah.
I think that I grew into being Daddy-O, having that name, and then knowing that I had to represent it. It's interesting because I kind of do albums the same way now. Like I do the album cover first.
Right.
And then I grow into it. But as a person, that person, I'm a father. I'm a believer in God, Bible dude. I'm somewhat of a technologist. I've done a lot. I want to do more. I'm kind of like now trying to get a little bit more back into it. I kind of slacked a little bit. And I got this from a guy I was doing some work with, man. He said something to me because the guy wasn't familiar with me in particularly, you know. I would say young dudes in his 40s, but young dude. No, actually, he was 51. The guy's 51. Very interesting brother because he cycles. And you know, it's a whole concept. He was showing me pictures of him on south of Spain cycling and all of that.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really familiar with my music or Stetsasonic. He was familiar with a few other things. Grew up in Indianapolis, and so we were doing some work together. That, you know, tech work. It had nothing to do with the music. And so the next day that we came back together on this particular project that we was doing, after he had asked me a few questions, he had, I guess, Googled me or searched YouTube for me or something. And he said, yo, I see what's going on with you. Like, you really been in it. He said, you're a professional rapper. He said, you're not like a guy that just, and I said, you know what? The next time I do some business cards, I'm putting professional rapper. Yeah, on there. Because, and the way he broke it down as a layman was very interesting, because he was like, you know, everybody got a YouTube video, everybody's out there, but professionals, like if you say a professional carpenter, or you say a professional welder, those are people that's been doing it for a while. That's literally the pros in that business.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so the moniker Daddy-O, a professional rapper.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's dope. That's dope. Now, Daddy-O is the professional rapper.
Right.
Let's talk about the humble beginnings of Glenn Bolton in East New York, Brooklyn.
I mean, I you know, I until we wrote the book, right? I probably would have answered that question different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I probably would have made it sound, you know, I probably would have started off with somewhere, you know, I grew up in the hood just like everybody else that grew up in the hood. But, you know, once we wrote the book, I started looking at all the uniqueness, right? So East New York has its own vibe,
right?
You know, I mean, all the way down to COVID-19, this is not a great thing, but all the way down to COVID-19, there was a long, concentrated time, 3 or 4 weeks, when East New York had the highest number of cases in New York.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's not the Bronx, and even as far as Brooklyn is concerned, it's not Red Hook, it's not Bed-Stuy, it's not Crown Heights. East New York is its own kind of element.
Right.
I grew up single parented, but smart, and I mean that by saying that my mom always put education first. And that was education in school, but that was also education outside of school. I often tell people that, when kids used to go on trips to like museums and stuff like that, that was probably my 10th or 11th time in that place before the school even went there.
Right.
And a lot of those kids, this is the first time they seen it, and I knew the grounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because my mother was adamant about libraries and museums and those type of things, public parks and all of those things. Love music. Grew up in a household with what I always say, 3 types of music. My mother's music, my sister and my brother, who were older than me, were like teens and going and getting out of their teens to being young adults, their music, and then my music.
Okay.
And in some cases it intertwined. In some cases, you know, that music might have been for everybody, or some particular artist might have touched us all at the same time, that we all like that song. But for the most, or song or artist or album, but for the most part, you know, those 3 types of music were different. I always say my mother's music always sounded like somebody was smoking cigarettes. Joe Tex, James Brown, Wilson Pickett, you know, all of that, you know. My sister and them was more, you know, Blue Magic, you know, leaning toward Isleys and some of that kind of crooner stuff. And my music, I say this all the time too, was younger, and the Jackson 5 was just not the only young group.
Right.
You know, you had Jimmy Briscoe and the Little Beavers, you had Brighter Side of Darkness, there was a lot of young voices when I grew up, you know what I mean? Young generation, you know, just a lot of, whether they were singles, whether they made albums or not, or whether those albums peaked or not, there was a lot of young voices besides the Jackson 5.
Right.
Besides the Silvers.
Was one of those young voices that you're speaking of, was one of those voices the ones who got into you to give you that performing bug?
I'm not sure if it was any of the young voices. I remember as a kid, I remember that, honestly, the Temptations being my favorite music act. Like I liked solo acts, but probably if I was to go with a solo when I was younger, it would have probably been James Brown because of my Aunt Sarah. My Aunt Sarah loved James Brown so much that every record that came out, she put it on.
Okay.
She bought the 45. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
So if it was a solo artist that really influenced my youth, it was James over Stevie, over Marvin, over all of that, because that's how much was around me. But as a musical act, it was always the Temptations.
Temptations.
Okay. Yeah, it was always the Temptations.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, coming up as hip hop started to, I guess, spread throughout the boroughs in New York City, who was that dude for you? That voice that had the charisma, maybe it was the voice, that special something that made you, oh, let me give that a try.
Oh, it had to be Melly Mel. I mean, it had to be Mel. The first time I heard about hip hop was through a tape of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Melly Mel was the first rap voice I ever heard. Okay. Because he started that tape off. 1 for the trouble, 2 for the time. Come on, Flash, let's rock that. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, y'all, to the beat. Like that was the first rap voice I ever heard in my life. So it had to be Mel, the kind of, and I say this, he's a friend now, Lil Rodney C from the Funky 4+1 More. Mm-hmm. Rodney C was the battery pack. Okay. Because Rodney C said, and I never had heard his tapes, but I had heard when rap music started, when they started making rap records in that area of 79 and 80, they were signed to, so was Flash and them, they were signed to Bobby Robinson, Enjoy Records, and the Funky 4+1 More made a record called Rapping and Rockin' the House. Mm-hmm. And Rodney C, he said the rhyme later on in the Double Trouble rhyme too, but he said another MC, when he running down rhymes, half the time he just running down mine, but that's okay because I know someday I'll put him in check and take his rep away. And I said, I want to be that guy. Yeah. I want to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I modeled some of my slickness around Rodney C. I don't know, people might shoot me for this, but I don't think Melly Mel was slick. Okay. You know, Mel was a little bit more boisterous and much more leader. Right. You know what I'm saying? But Rodney C had the slick stuff that I really liked. Okay. Yeah.
Now, people know about Stetsasonic. People might know. Right. Daddy-O is the founder. Right. Of Stetsasonic. What I find fascinating is how Stetsasonic is classified as the original hip hop band. Right. Explain to us what the dynamics of what makes a hip hop band and why Stetsasonic was so influential and innovative.
Well, a couple of things. Let me just, and this is something I'll do this with you, man, that I never did before. Let me shout out Cosmo D of Nucleus, because we have an ongoing battle, and I talked to Jalil or Houdini about it, and so we got an ongoing battle with Cosmo saying that Nucleus was the first hip hop band.
Okay.
Because they did go out on the Fresh Fest with instruments. Mm. Now, a lot of people say no because they say what Nucleus did was more, what they call that, electro.
Right.
Electro. Yeah, really kind of electro. It was. I don't think the word techno was even around then. Okay. And the argument that Cosmo uses is, you know, if you say we're not hip hop, then you got to say Planet Rock is not hip hop. Mm. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know, shout out to Cosmo. The reason I say we're the original hip hop band, it happened very organically. So we are a group of guys who at this particular time that we go into the studio own equipment. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people didn't own drum machines, none of that. They used to go in the studio and rent them. Right. And sometimes people would actually book studios based on the equipment that was in that studio. Like the first time we went in the studio, we booked that studio because, you know, we would look at the list of equipment that they had.
Right.
And if they had a certain drum machine or whatever, I never forget, because, you know, the two biggest drum machines back in the day was the DMX and the Lindrum. Okay. And it would have to be one of them. So if they had a Lindrum or a DMX, some studios had them both. That's what people would do. They would book that studio. We were one of the few groups that had equipment. Okay. I had a handful of DJ stuff and all of that. DBC had the whole full setup. Prince Paul had close to the whole full setup. And so the reason we became a hip hop band was very organically with the fact that every element that you use to make a hip hop song was in our particular unit. Mm-hmm. You know, we had Wise the Human Mix Machine, which took care of the human beatbox. We had Prince Paul, which took care of the DJ thing, and then DBC used to do a bit of DJing himself. We had DBC that took care of all of the sampling and all of that. And then we had Bobby Simmons, who played live drums, which kind of took care of the breakbeat element and all that, and rappers. Right. So it was a little bit more than just a rapper and a DJ, or a group of rappers and a DJ. Yeah. So we were, you know, we had the ability to break our music down. And the one thing that Nucleus did not have was a heavy element of the DJ. You know, and you can hear it in their records. You don't hear scratching. You hear them going, wiki, 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 shut up. You know what I mean? But you don't hear the scratching and you know, noticeably no human beatbox. And the human beatbox is part of music, you know, of hip hop. Yeah. You know, technically, to me, the Get Fresh crew is a band. You know what I mean? With Barry, Will, Dougie, and Rick. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a way Doug and them do that double DJ thing, you know, where I've seen them do things where one guy is just holding the beat. He's literally playing the role of a drummer. Right. Then the other guy's doing something, scratching and all that. That's what the keyboardist or whatever would do. Then Dougie with his mouth and Ricky rapping. You see what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So that's why we called ourselves the hip hop band. We wanted to, and what really made it happen was one real organic element. We went in the studio, we made all these records, and then we was like, how are we gonna duplicate this on stage? Yeah. And basically we all said, we just gonna take everything up on stage with us. And that's basically how we became a hip hop band, just taking equipment on stage with us. Because back in the day, there was no Serato, there was none of that stuff. So we couldn't, and we didn't have enough money to press vinyl that was instrumental vinyl. Right. So we basically, you know, and then on top of that, you know, loving the elements of what James Brown and all those other people could do, you know, that was just something great for me, because I could literally be up on stage rapping and tell a guy stop, you know, and it didn't have to be stopping in the middle of the record or whatever. Like we literally are doing what bands do. So changing tempos, whatever.
And not to mention the high energy that you brought to your live stage show. And I mean, that still rings true for today. I seen you guys on stage, and that's still that same high energy of a band.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's what we believed in. So later on, when we began to embrace it, then we started saying, whoa, you know, we actually started like paralleling, not to say we them, but paralleling and learning from what Earth, Wind, and Fire was doing, what War was doing, what Mandrill was doing. We start looking at that element because these are guys that are amongst the James Browns, the Temptations, the blah, blah, but they bands.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Rare Earth. You know what I'm saying? They banned. So how do we now compare, you know, going out on the road with LL Cool J, with this one, with Houdini, with this one? How do we juxtapose that particular situation? We did it in the same manner as some of those bands did in the 70s.
Right. And I think one of the dopest stories that I've heard that you told me that it's going to be in the book is you guys actually got your record deal as being a band based on your stage performance.
Oh yeah, we won a contest. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We won a contest, and that's how we got our record. So we was a stage act first.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being brutally honest, and Delight can back me up on this. I mean, all the guys, but you know, me and Delight started the band. We didn't know how to make no records in the beginning.
Right.
We had no idea really what we was gonna do, because we knew we had this idea of being unique. We knew that. So we knew it wasn't gonna sound like nothing else nobody was doing. How do we do that? Because we killing the stage the way nobody else kills the stage. Nobody was doing the kind of things we were doing. We would come out there with Wise, we would come out there with Wise kicking a beat with his mouth, and we doing steps to it.
Right.
You know, syncopated movement and dancing to the beatbox. Nobody had ever did that. So it was all this other stuff that we used to do. And now we gotta make records. So we're like, oh, because we already, you know, first of all, you gotta understand, take you back to that day and time. The concept of being unique was number one in everybody's regime.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you sound like somebody else, we used to call that biting.
Yeah.
You know, you biting, and people will literally turn you off because you sounded like somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we knew we were not gonna be like anyone else, but now how do we make recorded music that's as unique as our stage show? So there was a learning curve there. There was definitely a learning curve there.
Okay. And I think it was what, first, second, and third prize of the contest was for record deal, right?
Oh yeah. And we won all three. Like
all
three of them wanted us. We ended up going with the second prize, which was Tommy Boy. I mean, you know, we talk about a little bit in the book. The first prize was Sugar Hill, but that just didn't turn out to be a great situation.
Yeah.
But so we did go up to Sugar Hill for the, you know, to try to get the deal, but it didn't turn out right. But yeah, we went with Tommy Boy. But third prize was Lawrence Goodman out of Philly with Pop Art, who ended up signing Salt and Pepper. But yeah, all three of them won it. You know, Lawrence was like, hey man, you can roll with me, blah, blah, blah. You know, Tommy Boy was definitely in the mix, like, hey, you know, what's up? You know, and you know, Sugar Hill was first prize. So we tried to go, you know, I mean, at that particular time, Sugar Hill Records was the premier rap label. You know, we had no idea what kind of business practices they had, but we just knew they was number one. So we did try to go, and Flash and them was signed up there. I think Funky Four was just coming on.
Okay.
Treacherous was just coming on up there. So a few people was already signed to Sugar Hill, because almost every one of those groups that was on Enjoy went over to Sugar Hill. You know, so yeah, so we, you know, we tried it, but then it didn't work out. So we went with Tommy Boy.
Okay. Now, around the time where I guess you want to say Stetsasonic was, I don't want to say breaking up, or maybe somebody wanted to go solo or whatever. How was that situation? Right. How was that situation handled with the group? Was it all pretty easy going, or was there backlash?
I think it was very organic. The only tough part with Stetsasonic was when Fuquan left the group.
Okay.
That was hard. because Fuquan was an integral element of the band. Like one of the most famous lines of all our records, Fuquan wrote and says it. It ain't nothing like hip hop music. That's him. You know what I mean? So, you know, we made the third album without him, but prior to that, we was already touring without him. But that was the only rough patch, and we bounced back, you know, pretty well and quickly. But in terms of what Wikipedia calls disbandment, that was not even planned. That was just doing the third album, and career. Do I want to call it choices? Possibly. Doing the third album and career choices. You know, by that time, Prince Paul and Daddy-O was producing records, and it became a career path for the two of us. Right. The other guys in the band, not so much, except for Bobby, who stayed on with me making records. So when I made records for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and a lot of that other stuff, Bobby Simmons is right there with me. But other than that, you know, the cats wasn't doing what we were doing. Right. And so, you know, yeah, it took up a lot of time. And, you know, that's it. I don't know. It almost, because I'm not making organic a good or a bad word. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. It just kind of it kind of almost organically did that. You know, Paul played these three dudes from Long Island for me called De La Soul. Told me, hey man, this is what I got. I don't know what to do with it. I went, got De La a deal. So Paul was kind of off and running after the De La deal. I was producing records. So I started doing stuff like, you know, I did Top Bill and I did a few other things, but prior to Top Bill, I did Positive K. I did a few other things. So I started doing that. And the rest of the guys was doing whatever they were doing at that particular time. But yeah, it was just more career stuff. It wasn't like a big old argument. Oh man, we just ain't doing this no more. Like we never officially broke up. You know, just things happen and career choices. Like for instance, I'll give you an example. A few years ago, and Bobby, my drummer, could tell you exactly what year it was. You know, Bobby gave me a call and said, "Yo, DBC quit." And I said, "What do you mean?" And we had just got through doing a few shows. Okay. And he said, "Nah, man, DBC quit, man." You know, he said he don't want to do it no more. And it was weird because it was based on an interview that I did on YouTube. You know, and he was like, "Oh, Daddy-O's lying. He's lying. He's saying that I came to y'all, but y'all came to me." We went up to Middletown to meet DBC, but everything after that, he used to come down and spend the night with me. That's actually how I learned to produce. The way I learned to produce is DBC used to come spend the night at my house, and he used to fall asleep, and I used to get on his equipment. Okay. You know, and that's what I was talking about. I was talking about when he used to come down, because that's where we used to practice, in my crib in Brownsville. You know what I mean? But, you know, he just quit. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then when we tour, sometimes Fuquan comes, sometimes Fuquan doesn't come. It's no harm, no foul. You know what I'm saying? For us, you know what I mean? We got a, like, to be released, Stetsasonic, we got Stetsasonic live at the Blue Note. We did 2 nights at the Blue Note. We got a live album. It actually would have been out already if COVID didn't happen. But all the press and plant, because it's coming out on wax. The press and plants and everything closed down. All the promo guys, like, we actually stirring back up now that things are calming down. Well, that is about riots and not COVID now. But anyway, so we got a live album. Fuquan's on that album, but then we got a new album that we're doing and a first single, which is ridiculous. Fuquan's not on that. You know what I'm saying? But that's his choice. It's not that he's not in the band. Yeah. He comes when he wants and he goes when he wants. The only one not there is DBC officially said he's done. Okay. Now you mentioned a couple minutes ago your work on the single Top Billin' for Audio 2. Right. We also have a chapter in the book called 6 Degrees of Daddy-O. I don't think many people really know that maybe you produce or get the credit for produce. You told me how it was sort of produced
on accident.
Right.
How the song came together on
Right.
accident. Let's talk about the
Right.
six degrees of Daddy-O, because to let people know, I don't think people know just how many people are connected through
Right.
you. If you want to say hip hop had a family tree or a bloodline, how many people came through Daddy-O?
Right. A lot. It's a lot, man. You know, just because I put people in the business, like I put Kedar Massenberg in the business. So that means that as a grandfather, I could take credit for D'Angelo, Erykah Badu, not Brian McKnight, because he started working with Brian after, not Kim, because he started working with Kim after, but India, you know what I'm saying? All of that from putting him in the business, right?
Right.
I put Lance Rivera in the business. So that means I could take credit for Little Kim, everything Junior Mafia, not Biggie, because Big was already doing it, but some of Biggie's machismo and business ethic and all of that kind of stuff. I helped Puff produce a lot of stuff. I showed Puff a lot of technique in the beginning when we were doing the remixes for Real Love and Love No Limit, and so a lot came, you know, a lot came out of that. And then honestly, bro, like people approach me all the time and tell me I was in your studio in Brooklyn, and it'd be somebody famous. And I'd be like, what? And they'd be like, yeah. Like Tretch used to come to my house as a little boy in that same Brownsville apartment I'm talking about in Noble Drew Plaza. And he used to come to me every weekend, and I used to teach Tretch and them how to rap and what to do and how to make demos.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so, you know, but I honestly, I probably, you know, it's good that we did the book, because you would charge me for answers. But if nobody charged me for answers, I almost forgot everybody, man.
Right.
It's just so many. Like Muggs, I produced the first 783 album. So Muggs was with me before he even was Muggsy. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so many, because I was on the front line of a lot of record making, right? So it's not the front line of hip hop. That's Melly Mel, that's Kaz, that's Mo D, that's them. But I was on the front line of some of that record making. You know what I mean? Help Public Enemy tremendously. Silent advisor on America's Most Wanted. You know what I mean? There the whole time they making that album. You know, showing Ice Cube things like the X-Clan album when he walks out of the studio and stuff like that. Just, I mean, you know, I've been in this business, what they call a music business, if it's still there, you know, for quite some time. So, you know, I've interacted with quite a few people in various in digital, we call them verticals. I guess in music they call them genres.
Right.
But yeah, I've interacted with quite a few people in this business, not only on the music side, like artists, but also on the executive side as well.
Right. Okay. Now let's talk about legacy in hip hop.
Right.
Is legacy important?
Well, I think it is. Here's the way I would answer the question: is legacy in hip hop important? There's a line we say all the time. When I say we, I mean a lot of people. It's common to a lot of folks, that it ain't over till the fat lady sings, right? Who the hell the fat lady is, none of us know. Maybe it's Lizzo, who knows? but who, by the way, is losing weight. But so she might even not be the fat lady in a minute. But you know, we say it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And what we mean by that is that, you know, things are yet to happen. It's, you know, the end is not the end until it's the end. Right. And so I think legacy is important, because I think now we have platforms like what me and you are doing now, and some of the other things that people do, and some of the other things that even like that you do. Like if you think about your podcast, your you know, the fiction joint that you do. It's fiction, but you still got all of the facts in there about, you know, the groups that existed and all of that kind of stuff. It becomes important through guys like you, because you guys are very interested in documenting it. Now, a few years ago, it might have not been important because there was no you to document. There was just people to make money. Right. So when they making money, they don't care about what happened before that. They just care about what's there right now.
Yeah.
You know, and can I make money off this thing right now? Who cares about what made money 6 years ago? Who cares about what made money 10 years ago? Right. I need to make this money now. But guys like you are gonna not allow legacy to die. And then what happens is, when your podcast gets in the hands of a 30-year-old, when your podcast gets in the hands of a 27-year-old, it starts being something else. Because I'll give you an example. I'm starting to connect, because of the records I make, I'm starting to connect with a lot of DJ record pools, right? The last, because they do conference calls now.
Okay.
The last conference call I did with the Fleet DJs, first time I did a conference call with the Fleet DJs, almost everybody on that call was familiar with me. Last conference call I did with the Fleet DJs, a lot of them people ain't even know who I was. But they like this new record that I got out with Indigo Phoenix called Gun Store Movie, and they like, yo, the record is dope, blah, 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 blah. And then they went back and said, whoa. Or even on that call heard me talking about stuff and was like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? So yes, the short answer is yes, legacy is important, but I think legacy will be more important in the future than it has ever been, because of documentarians like yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. You know, I 8 years ago, I kind of jumped off the porch and jumped in the game. I did my documentary with We Are One Street Music of New Orleans. With I had no experience. Wrote it, narrated, produced it, directed. No experience at all. I wanted to go home to New Orleans and document. Sort of going back to the 80s when I was a kid coming up. What hip hop meant. And here we are 8 years later. And I've lost money on everything I've ever done, but but that documentary is opening doors for me 8 years later.
Wow.
The Netflix series, the Hip Hop Evolution.
Yeah.
That the little portion they put out in January about New Orleans part. I've had people that sent me email and like promoted me, telling me thank you because my stuff was more accurate.
Wow.
And then that was, who had a much bigger budget than I had to work.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's all the satisfaction I needed, because authenticity and the real storytelling is what I truly embrace.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. So once you started getting into the production and the pop music, maybe pop or rock, how was that transition going from you to hip hop into that world?
Not hard at all, because again, it's early, right? So that's all frontline stuff. So this is a time when our sound is starting to break through and people want our sound.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So besides for, say, the Chili Peppers, who already loved hip hop, but besides that, you know, working with the B-52s or working with Sonic Youth or working with Sublime, those were alternative bands. I guess you could call them alternative rock. Those were alternative bands that now they started seeing value in what we did, in particularly the drums. You know, that those hip hop, even to this day, I know the young people get a lot of flack, but even to this day, them drums that them young people do with the trap, I mean, it's so distinctly theirs.
Right. Yeah.
So you might have somebody now just try to take a trap beat and do a folk song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Because hip hop and drums is something about it. You know, there's people that say, "Oh, it comes from the African," and maybe it does. You know, I'm not one of them, but I'm saying maybe it does. But the point of the matter is that they were interested in that, and so it allowed an easy transition.
Right.
The cool part for me was those were projects when they came up. I was like, give that one to me because I grew up on the B-52s. I love Rock Lobster in that album. I had the first Red Hot Chili Peppers album before anybody knew who they were, and used to play it. Like Stetsasonic will tell you that I used to play it. You know, when we was on tour, I would play it. So, you know, all of those bands were bands that I was very interested in if they existed prior to me making music. They were just bands that I was interested in, period.
Period. Right.
So it was a pleasure. I mean, yeah, it was great. Money was good too, but it was a pleasure to work with that just because that was stuff that I liked. And, you know, it was for me, it didn't technically feel like I don't see the Red Hot Chili Peppers as pop, or I don't see the B-52s as pop. Those are alternative bands that they're not Whitesnake.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So those are alternative bands that they kind of caught some flack, just like we caught flack.
Right. Right.
Because they making something different, and it don't sound like everything else, and they still express, you know, they still expressing themselves, but it's like, you know, they had to create their own audience.
Right.
You know, and it's very close to hip hop from a historical perspective because it was the downtown clubs in Manhattan that accepted us.
Mm.
So one of the bigger downtown clubs that people will talk about is Danceteria. It was the downtown clubs that accepted us, and that was the music that was being played down there.
Okay. So it was, I guess, like historians say, it was what, the punk or the alternative scene is what.
Yeah, it was that. I guess in the beginning they called it punk, and then when it developed a little bit more, they called it alternative rock.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you know, these Beastie Boys come out of that scene. These were the guys that were making music that they felt, the Ramones, all of them, you know what I'm saying, that they felt was important and that they felt expressed what they did. And it wasn't long-haired rock and roll.
Right.
A lot of them did not have long hair.
Right.
You know, they had short haircuts, they were doing colors and stuff, but they wasn't doing the long hair thing. And they weren't super duper guitar bands. They were starting to bring in you know, you think of people like Malcolm McLaren and all the rest of these people, and they were starting to bring in drum machines and other little elements that those wasn't hip hop. You know, drum machines wasn't created for hip hop, so
Right.
it wasn't hip, but it was the same equipment that some of the hip hop people were using. The only thing that they wasn't really doing was DJing. They didn't have no DJs. You know, DJs played their music, but they didn't have DJs like in their band or whatever. But they were bringing in some of those other elements. They were experimenting with it sonically, you know. So it wasn't the same old, you know, guitar, bass, and drum and a singer.
Yeah.
You know, they was doing some different type of things. So
Okay. Now, based on the culture and region that you're familiar with or came up around that everybody did, what would you consider? Because I asked last week, I interviewed Big Mitch, you know, the founding father of UGK. I interviewed him and asked him, what is your thoughts, or what is real hip hop to you? Because everybody has real hip hop and their thoughts of real hip hop. What is it to you?
I mean, for me, I think I get, honestly, I was getting ready to say I think I get slack, but nobody really gives me slack, period. Real hip hop to me is the stuff on the tapes before we made records. That's real hip hop to me.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like the stuff that really like kind of like, you know, if you want to talk about stuff that's sentimental enough to make me cry.
Yeah.
Like I could cry listening to a Mastodon Committee tape.
Mm-hmm.
Or old Flash tape, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, cause it's just dope. So that's real hip hop to me.
Right.
You know, I always say this. You know, you hear this all the time. Oh, there's a difference between a rapper and an MC, you know. And you hear an MC could be a rapper, but a rapper could never be an MC. You know, I actually got to send you the new album. I said something about, I got this record called Spotify and the Memes, and I said that. I said a line about that kind of stuff. But anyway, once we became recording artists, we became rappers. If we wanted to stay MCs, we had to not record. Because once we became recording artists, we stepped over the line.
Right.
Now we on the other line. So we could try to be as real as we want, but Nathan, I never forget this, man. I used to have a CD collection. Actually still got a CD collection, but they don't look the same. It's not like my bookshelf anymore. I'm just holding boxes of stuff that I'm gonna digitize.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget holding a CD cover in my hand, right? And saying, looking at the what do you call it? The spine.
Right.
Right? Looking at the spine and saying, we make this for everybody else. Looking at the front cover, saying, we make this for everybody else. Looking at the back cover and saying, we make this for everybody else. Opening the CD, pulling out the booklet, because, you know, back in the day, the more of a booklet you had, the better. You know what I'm saying? Pulling out the booklet, saying, we make this for somebody else, and then holding up the CD and say, and we making this for ourselves? It just didn't make sense to me. You see what I'm trying to say? And so that's why I don't in particularly agree with the concept of sellout, because selling out is making records. You know what I'm saying? If you wanted to just be the performing artist that do your rhymes every night, then just get you a little setup, whether it's you and your DJ or whatever, go around, tour, make your rhymes, let other people make tapes and recordings of what you do. But you don't go to no label, you don't go nowhere, you don't put anything out for mass consumption.
Right.
But once you start with mass consumption, you have crossed the line.
Crossed the line, yeah.
That makes you no different than Macklemore, Will Smith, or nobody else. I don't care. You want to say, oh, they not spitting the real. Knock it off, my brother. You know what I'm saying? Everybody make different music anyway. So it ain't no such thing as like, oh, this is real, this ain't real. A lot of cats, especially after the 90s, started calling real stuff if it had a street element to it. You know, that's just music with a street element to it. It don't make it no realer than Will Smith.
Right, right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just street versus whatever. You gonna tell me raw bass ain't real hip hop? You know what I'm saying? Or what y'all call real hip hop on record? Raw bass is just as good as any of the rest of y'all. And honestly, It Takes Two will knock a stadium out when your little record probably won't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, real hip hop is before it was ever recorded. That's what I call real hip hop. But I'm fortunate to be old enough and in that, you know, part of that culture.
Right.
You know, but when I really want to get down to the nitty gritty, man, that's what I'm doing. You could ask anybody, even on tour, I'm throwing on old school tapes. Because I'm still trying to figure, it's some stuff Mel did, Scorpio did, Mo D did, Kaz and them did. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the here, I mean, I know Creole rap, locked up right now, but to hear Creole, it was one of those things that happened by chance, by a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like that stuff, man. Come on, man. There's stuff to figure out with that stuff, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody has not. That stuff is not. It hasn't all been figured out yet. I got Marsh. I'm on a Zoom call. That's why the light's on. Yeah. That stuff still hasn't been figured out. It's no different than an original jazz musician, going all the way back to Monk and them or prior to Monk and them. You know what I'm saying? And trying to figure it out, or being a reggae artist and trying to figure out some of the ska and some of the mento, because mento and ska existed before reggae. You know what I'm saying? And trying to figure out some of that stuff, like trying to dissect, maybe that's the word, trying to dissect some of the elements that created you.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's why that stuff is real hip hop for me, because before anybody, you know, Busy B was doing that. Nobody can do it like this AJ. Boop, doo, 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 doo. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, right now, if I got on stage, I don't care. I could give that routine to Young Glock right now.
Yeah.
And he could get on stage and go, nobody can do it like that Young Glock. And they would go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm trying to say? So it's dissecting those. And so that's why I say that's real to me. I'm just fortunate enough to go back that far.
Right.
Now what I will say is that the young people are now fortunate to listen to guys like Jaquan and some of these other guys. Troy, what's Troy last name? It's not Reed. Troy, that's that's on YouTube, that got some of these old tapes and stuff like that, and they could tap into it too.
Okay. Because I think that's something I'm kind of going through, man. I'm going back and listening to all kind of. I prefer listening to older.
Right.
Like I'm talking like maybe early 90s. I'm listening to early 90s stuff that was coming out, and I think we got to a certain point, maybe in the mid 90s, where people started mistaking complexities in your lyrics.
Right.
That's real hip hop. Complex words and this and that. And I go back to what interviewing you for the book, and one thing you spoke on is the word precision a lot. And I'm looking at a lot of artists who might not have had complex vocabularies, but you look at the precision of their work. I appreciate that a lot more now that they knew what they were doing 25, 30 years ago. Right. And I'm paying attention to that kind of stuff now.
That's what puts Pimp C at the top of my list.
Right.
When people will start talking about it, and I always say Pimp, and people say Pimp C, I say yeah. Because in terms of work, anything that any wordsmith is, he was.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like he put it down. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, man. That I'm coming down, when I heard Pimp C say I'm coming down Candy, I'm like, I'm from New York. I want to come down Candy.
Yeah. Yeah, you believed it.
Exactly. Like, man, when he says something about something on my $9,000 shirt, the game getting good. What? Hold on, yo, stop the presses.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's the same way I felt when I first heard Breed from Flint. God bless her dad.
Yeah.
You know, Breed was doing some crazy stuff, and he had that little voice, and then he threw that Rio. I'm like, I want to do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't do it because of who I am, right? But that's where I say don't get any of this twisted.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's another conversation. So, so the original question is what I think is real hip hop. So, yes, it's stuff that happened before records. Now, if you start now talking about on the record side, you got to talk to me about Andre Nickatina. You got to talk to me about Pimp C. You got to talk to me about MC Breed. Like, you got to talk to me about guys that really put it. Nickatina puts it down. And not only that, bro. Besides for the people that passed away, I'm constantly making records with all my favorite rappers. I did a record on the album I got out now with Bun. I got Nickatina on my new album. You know what I'm saying? Like, because they do that thing, man. And that thing is like, I feel like that thing is is that thing in every type of music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some people that do that thing in country that it's just like, man.
Yeah.
There's some people that do that thing in reggae that you just like, damn.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's some people that do that thing in R&B. You like, oh. You know what I'm saying? And it's never, put it this way, bro, it's never in one direction. So it's never all Black Power, that's the best. It's never that. It's never all gangster. Mm-hmm. You can find it in all these different places.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that, you know, to that end is what makes me love being a part of it, because I have all of those memories and I have all of that to count on. I think one of the tough parts for the young people nowadays, is the new equipment is the blessing and the curse. Because it's the blessing because you can put it down.
Yeah.
But it's the curse because you can put it down so quick. And I say this often, that they don't throw anything away.
Right.
You know, I when I do lectures, I say, you know, people say, what's the difference between, you know, then and now? And I'll take my yellow pad and I'll say, this is us. And I'll write something on the yellow pad. I'll do my head like this. I'll ball it up. I'll throw it on the stage. I'll write something, you know, not writing. I'm just scribble. I'll throw it away. And then I'll make a little pile on the stage, about 5 or 6 pieces of balled up paper, and say, that's us. I said, this is the kids now. Write it. Oh, that's a hit. You know, right away. You see what I'm saying? Because they have the ability to put it out on YouTube the next day and all of that. And that's where the concept of the masterpiece disappears. So I think that's what's happening. Say, even with a person like you that's younger than me, you going back to some stuff that is definitely a masterpiece. You know what I mean? And you feel it. You know what I'm saying? It's not just because it's from your youth. You just right. Like, damn, listen to this. And that's because cats took their time to make it. And somewhere along the line, I remember a couple of years ago, you know, little rappers getting an interview saying, yeah, man, I write a song in 10 minutes. I write a song in 5 minutes. Like, that ain't no badge of honor, bro.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like Picasso saying, I paint a picture in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a badge of honor. I'm not saying take forever on it, but, you know, give it its due time, let it breathe, and all of those particular things. So I think that is definitely one of the flaws of today, that stuff could be made so quickly and easily.
Yeah, I can feel that. And you know, I like to tell people, if you're not experiencing or open-minded enough to experience all the elements that came from rap from other regions,
right,
then you're really missing out. And you might want to call yourself just a casual fan, and rather I'm a diehard. But you're not even listening to what's going on here and what's going on there.
Yo, I was just doing the new album. I got a homie here, my brother here. His name is Wood, and I met Wood years ago in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He live here now, and you know, Wood got a studio. He's a rapper, but he became, in the years that, you know, I knew him years ago, he became a phenomenal engineer. So like, when you hear this new album, you're gonna hear, you know, this sonic goodness, right? And a lot of that comes because I cut a lot of records at his house, almost half the album, and he mixed almost half the album. And you know, I was there, and you know, so I cut the Nicotina sent me his vocals, so I cut the Nicotina joint at his joint. It was like, yo, who's that? I said, yo, pull up YouTube. He pulls up YouTube, puts Andre Nicotina. He's seeing 3 million, 5 million, 7 million. It's like, man, I don't know about this dude. I'm like, yo, this is what I'm trying to tell y'all. Like, y'all stay locked in to the people that y'all know, and y'all are missing out on like some of the craziest, dopest stuff that's out there. Now, these rappers don't care if you know them or not, because guys like Nicotina, he make his bones in Sacramento alone.
Mm.
By the time he go back down to the Bay, he great. You know what I'm saying? And he saw it on YouTube. He seen the shows was packed and all of that. So you know what I mean. But y'all are missing out. So these, you know, when these guys, you know, they don't care if you know them or not, because they got their fans that love them. But y'all are the ones missing out, running around here talking about you love hip hop. I'm like, how you love hip hop, you don't love Breed?
Yeah.
How you love hip hop, you don't love Pimp C? Like, if you don't talk about Chad to me, I can't have a conversation with you, bro. You know what I'm saying? I really can't, because you don't even know how to do what he did.
Right.
Like, I wish you could try to do what he did. Let me see which one of y'all. It's Houston rappers right now trying to mimic that flow and that wit. Right now, trying to see if can I get there to be that dope.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He said, on One Day You're Here, he said, when I got down on my knees that night to pray, I asked God, why you let these killers live and take my homeboy's son away?
Yeah.
Come on, man. Let me see you do that, bro. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm going with it. Like, yo, man.
Yeah.
And that don't mean I don't love the hell out of LL or somebody from the West Coast that might be popular. You see what I'm trying to say? You know?
Exactly. I think he had a way of being real personable with his records at a time. And still today, people are very personable.
Right.
I think he found a time, maybe it had to be the person he was to, I can leave the, I want to say the word that I'm looking for, but as personable as he was in his records, it would resonate with a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Because he spoke real life situations.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you just happened to mention when we did the book, your top 5, when I asked for your top 5 MCs, and you happened to mention Pimp C as being one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when people ask me my top 5 or top 10 rap albums of all time, Riding Dirty is my number 1. It's not It Takes a Nation, $1 Million to Hold Us Back. It's not Bigger and Deffer. It's not Paid in Full by Rakim. It's Riding Dirty. Like, that's the record.
Yeah. I hear you. This is the Professor on the Genius Generation podcast, and I'm sitting here today with Professor Daddy-O, my OG, and we wrote the book together, Made in Brooklyn, a memoir of beat, streets, and life with Daddy-O. And we're just chopping it up about hip hop culture today, music and whatnot. And what else you got, Daddy-O?
So I think I mentioned a little earlier, I'm working on Self-Destruction 2. Actually, I didn't, we was talking off camera about it. I'm working on Self-Destruction 2, just had a great conversation with Primo today. So, you know, that's moving forward ahead, man. Got some dope MCs lined up. Great producers, because it's DJ Premier, Pete Rock, Easy Mo B, Marley Marl. And I'm missing somebody. Premier, Marley, Large Professor. So that was my first 5, and then inducted KG from Naughty by Nature, and Tramp, his partner. You gotta mention Tramp, because Tramp is crazy. Inducted Rockwilder now, and inducted Prince Paul and Mix It. And I think I'm gonna pull a couple of more producers in there. And then, you know, we basically, like me and my team, my man Azim, start thinking about doing some different versions. So we had a conversation with Black and Brown Entertainment to do a Latino version. We're talking to the people in Texas about doing what we call the Third Coast version, which is, you know, everybody from Yellow Beezy all the way down to Lil O, you know what I'm saying, in Houston. Right. You know, talking to Carnival Beats in Austin, Michael Watts and all those guys. To produce that. So yeah, I mean, that's moving. Stetsasonic album is coming along ridiculous. Like, I can't even, you know, and you know, me and you've been having these conversations for a few years about Stet.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, Nathan, man, I'm trying to get these guys to come around, man. I'm trying to get them where, and they are there now. They are there now. And I'm real happy about that, working on the Stet. And yeah, man, very interestingly, I I just formed a new collective called Night Train, which is Daddy-O of Stetsasonic, Speech from Arrested Development, and Chuck D from Public Enemy.
Yeah, that's dope.
So Night Train, we got a record coming out called Bullets in a couple of weeks. We're just working on the finishing up the video. It's talking about everything that's been happening and stuff. And then we're working on that album. We're working on that album as well. From My Hood to I'm not From My Hood to You is out now. I got Go Down Adult coming out sometime this year. I got Nicotino on that record, Big Mike, Chuck, Wise Intelligent, Rusty Jukes, Indigo Phoenix. I think somebody else, I can't remember. I'm working on a duets album called Duets Femme Fatale, which is just me and girls. That's coming along great. I think I might be 5 or 6 tracks in on that.
Okay.
Yeah, man, I'm just working, man. You know me. I'm just going.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, man, for being with me. I got since I guess stuff is opening back up. Publicist called this morning, man. I got these media opportunities coming up. I got something at 2.
Great.
Yeah, I got an interview at 2:00 today. I got one.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Beautiful.
It's starting to happen. We dropped 3 episodes of Players from the South, and then everything stopped. So that's why. So
Playing for the South is dope, but that's gonna have some legs, man. I think you started something. I know I'm gonna see a bunch of copycats, but I'm glad to be associated with the person that created it. You know what I mean? Because I know copycats are coming.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'll be talking to you soon, man. I really do appreciate it. This is Daddy-O. Daddy-O the icon. Daddy-O my OG. Daddy-O my friend. Daddy-O Sonic.
No doubt.
That's right. You want to sign us off, bro?
Oh yeah, man. Just peace to everybody. Don't get caught up into the, try to not get caught up into nothing. Stay close to your families.
Right.
Do what need to be done, man. Because I know it's been a lot of talk, and I don't want to go real deep, but been a lot of America bashing right now. But I might sound like an idiot, but if you don't like it, leave. And I only say that because I got uncles and friends that left America.
Right.
They African citizens now. They got dual citizenship. Some of them are opening up schools in Africa. They didn't like what was going on, but they put their money where their mouth was and they left. You know what I mean? But you can't. I don't believe you're supposed to. They said don't bite the hand that feeds you. I don't think you're supposed to curse the ground that you live in. We all are benefiting from our military, protecting our borders. I mean, there's so many things we benefit. We open refrigerators and eat food, man. You look at third world countries, man. I mean, one day, just take one day, you could get it on your phone. You don't need no cable or nothing. Go to Al Jazeera Live. Al Jazeera is a news program that comes out of and watch one day of Al Jazeera, and you'll see what people are going through in the world. And we're very blessed to be here, man. So don't get caught up into that. Take care of your family. Stay close to, the things that you believe in and the things that have made you who you are. And, start listening to some of that hip hop from around the nation, man. Don't get stuck in your little town.
Yeah, enjoy. That's right.
Yeah.
This is Nathan Rito, the Professor. You can check me out at Instagram at the Professor73, on Twitter at the Prof1973, and you can check out my man Daddy-O at Professor Daddy-O.
Yes.
Instagram. That's Professor Daddy.
Yeah, and I got a .com too. There's a ProfessorDaddy-O.com too. Love for everybody to check out my Bandcamp. My music is up there. We got some specials up there if you buy everything. You know what I'm saying? So make that happen.
Yeah, that's right. And check out
it's COVID-19. I'm home. I need some checks.
Also, check out Players from the South. PlayersFromTheSouth.com. That's Players with a Z. Hip hop's first fiction podcast series, written and created by me. All right. This is the Genius Generation Podcast. This is your host, Nathan Rito, and you'll never understand the weight this culture carries until you live the lifestyle. And I live the lifestyle. So peace.
We get them 84s raw. Candy paint, drip, drip, 84s, tick, tick.